just go ahead and kick off the meeting of the great minds here, us too. So just a reminder, this meeting is being recorded, and we are a CNCF project, so we abide by the CNCF Code of Conduct. So let me go to the agenda here, what I was working on. Okay, so we were going through the documentation and just found there was a reorg that happened here a few months ago that kind of messed up overall the doc ecosystem. So there's some disconnectedness in how the docs actually flow end to end. So we basically need to just do an audit of our current documentation, make sure that things actually make sense, not just do all the links click through and everything responds, but is it coherent and how things are configured and set up. So that's going to be a big rework, just to basically just go through and read the docs and use it and make sure everything makes sense, right?
So you think some text got messed up, or how they link to each other?
Well, yeah, there was some reorg and moving around of files, and I'm not convinced that all the links give the information that we think they're giving now, basically.
Okay.
So
well, that could be a useful thing for somebody new to try too, right?
Yes, for sure. I mean, really, it's reading through the docs and just making sure they make sense as a new contributor, right? Or a new user of Porter, and capturing just see here.
Okay, that sounds good. I didn't know if you were thinking, both of you, about dividing and conquering somehow, like the dots, or what were you thinking?
Let's see. Capture any inconsistencies.
I did find another issue, actually.
Okay.
It seems like getporter.org.
Yes.
Maybe that was owned by the team, but it's still used in places. Like I just clicked on the hackathon link and it took to porter.org, and that
Yeah.
anymore. Yeah.
So we have an issue around that. Unfortunately, that was owned by Carolyn, and we didn't recover it after she passed. And so we just realized that the domain expired. And so Sarah is currently working on recovering that domain, but it is linked everywhere because Carolyn had done some work to move off of porter.sh to get porter.org. And
oh, okay. So that actually was the preferred one. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes, it is. So that's currently Sarah opened up an issue, I think today, to make sure that we follow that up. But I know she's been working with the owner of that domain to move it over now. So,
okay.
Pardon?
Well, no, I was just saying, did somebody grab it?
No, well, no, it was owned by Carolyn. Carolyn Van Slyck was the creator of Porter, and she passed away last year. And we just haven't, that was kind of one thing we missed during the transition, was claiming ownership of that domain, because she had it registered through, not through like one of the main ones. And so we just got to go recover that.
Okay.
Yeah, but it hasn't been picked up. Sarah's currently working on that right now. Another thing I noticed was throughout the documentation in Hugo, we've got a mix of aliases, hard-coded URLs, and slugs, and the slugs are not working. So like really, we just need to kind of consolidate on aliases and make sure that we're using them. And I'm not a Hugo expert at all, so I don't know if there's, we may need somebody who knows more about just using Hugo in general. But what's the suggested best practice for using aliases and then just kind of move over to using that because it's really intermixed right now.
Okay, but sounds like aliases make sense, right?
I think so. Because it's definitely a way to ensure backwards compatibility as well, instead of just having everything set at an individual URL. So I tried to move a lot onto the aliases, but there's still a significant amount that needs to be, if not moved over, at least we need to figure out and make sure that we're using the right aliases. And so this is kind of the same thing is audit current docs and ensure that we're using sane aliases. So yeah, that's just a lot of busy work around the docs, and this is probably just going to take a while to do too, because we got hundreds of docs out there that we're going to have to go make sure are in a good state. Right now, everything works. All the links should resolve, except for I think actually Sarah got a PR up this morning to get to off of getporter.org onto porter.sh for all of the doc references themselves. So that at least is good. And everything internally should resolve as well. And then there's something that I was running into when I was working on the docs is like when you're using aliases, sometimes it's hard to correlate where the actual link points to in terms of like where in the doc directory structure that alias resolves to, because that's being figured out by Porter under the hood. So just look into a way, is there a way to get a table of all of the files and the aliases associated with them so that we can look up, where does this doc actually live in the directory without having to search everywhere. Maybe the alias doesn't even exist. So I'm sure there's something in Hugo that'll allow us to do that. We just need to kind of look into that for a little bit and see what the easiest way to maintain those aliases would be.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Did you have anything else about the docs?
No, I just didn't. I just saw her mention it, and it seemed like it was a good idea. Myself and some teammates. I'm familiar with Foam, but I have some teammates that are getting more familiar. So maybe they could use that as an opportunity
Okay,
to do that.
sure. Yeah, that'd be great. That's a great place to start. Because it kind of kills two birds with one stone there. You get to start understanding Porter, and we can make sure these docs are all up to date.
Yeah.
The other thing is there's an outstanding issue from quite a while back where we want to make, for the Terraform mixin specifically, we want to be able to set a working directory per command, so per install or whatever that is. And I'm looking to implement that, and I have a working implementation now, but I kind of wanted to talk about from a usage perspective what that would look like. So there's two different pieces with the Terraform mixin config. At build time, the Terraform files need to be copied in. So if we have, at the top level, my infra 1, infra 2, infra 3, we're going to need to, at build time, say, hey, this is where all of my Terraform files are in these different directories, and make sure they get copied in to the appropriate folders in the bundle. And then we'll need to correlate that back at execution time for the action to say, for this Terraform step, this is the WorkingDir for that. And so mainly it's more of a usability question. It's using the mixin. What would be the thing that would make sense for setting that up? Because now we're going to have an individual working directory that you can set for the mixin config that just says, this is where my working directory is for a single directory that has my Terraform in it. But if you have multiple infrastructure folders defined, then you'll want to give a list of files. So I was thinking about adding a second config option called WorkingDirs, which is a list. And then you provide all of the different directories in there, but that's going to be mutually exclusive with the single working dir. And then we'll need to make sure that, at the action step, you have to specify what directory does this action, or what set of Terraform files does this action correlate to.
Is this just so, like, I think like in the container itself, I think there's just a folder called Terraform. So you just don't want to have all the Terraform in that one folder, but spread it out into multiple folders. Is that?
Well, no. So there's the default working directory is called Terraform. So if you don't provide anything to the mixin config, then it just assumes that all of your Terraform is in the Terraform directory, and it just kind of sets that up behind the scenes for you. If you want to have it named something different, you can name it to anything, and this becomes the relative path to where
that's actually, so that's actually already supported. I didn't realize that.
Yes. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's already supported. The thing is if you have, say, two different Terraform, they're not really modules, but two different Terraform plans, if you will. Like infrastructure one, it lives in this directory, but then after that Terraform applies, you want to run a second Terraform that maybe even it depends on the first Terraform. So like you want to do multiple executions of the Terraform mixin against different infrastructure in the same bundle, right?
So you'd be running all your Terraform commands for that directory. You don't want to mix them up, I guess. So they're separate, like the Terraform plan and apply and so on would be done in that separate directory.
Yes, and you can do it in each individual directory. So you could have multiple different layers of infrastructure.
I guess for more complex Terraform, I guess, scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe the pushback of what that would be like, why is this not a single Terraform configuration? Right. But this has come up a couple of times now, and this was a direct ask at KubeCon as well, saying, hey, this is just how we have things designed. And it's not a significant amount of work to support. It's more about like from a usability standpoint, because this does change under the hood how the mixin is running, because we at build time we need to make sure we set up the WorkingDirs the way that we expect them to, and then at execution time we need to map the particular action for that Terraform to the working directory that we want to operate against, right? So it would look something like this, and then if you provided the list of WorkingDirs, then the individual one is just ignored, but that means you have to provide the where you want to run this Terraform execution from when you do it in the action.
I see. That makes sense, I think, if that's the requirement. Are you? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just, again, it's more of like a, I wanted to kind of get some feedback on how we would expect this to operate. And
to go back to the current support, I guess you can only apply the working directory at the mixin level, like, so it's not supported at the action level. Is that why you have?
Yes, because at the mixin level, it's at build time, it copies in the Terraform from your relative directory into the bundle, and then it just sets that in the runtime config. It looks at what the mixin config is, and it changes the directory into that working directory every time you execute a Terraform action inside of your bundle. So that's already supported under the scenes, but now we would want to, instead of it always inferring what working directory it runs at, this is where we would have to specify what working directory it runs at in the particular action.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense to me, but I haven't thought about it much. You've been thinking, but yeah, if you want to do it at the action level, you need some way to specify which of the working directories it is for that particular, for that particular action.
This is definitely a more advanced Terraform use case as well. So, if it's not quite as seamless as the default use case, I think that's maybe to be expected, because this is not something that I think you'd normally run into. And we probably actively discourage unless there's a particular reason you would want to do this, right?
Yeah, might be good to have like a sample, but yeah, for the people that were asking, was it just historical or that was some technical reason,
Yeah.
which it might
Yep.
be
That's
interesting.
a good point. Um,
I mean, if you could ask them, I guess, but or just try to find out.
yeah.
I guess there is no workaround, or you'd have
No,
to have
there is no
separate bundles,
workaround for it.
separate bundles,
Yep.
maybe.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't think it's an invalid. It's just not normal, right? Um, I mean, I use this same pattern frequently when I'm running Terraform, like just from a CI, and I want to have different environments that are
Mhm.
may have slight differences. Like I have a dev, a stage, prod folders, and then I just do the working directory changes in there. But my expectation would be if I was writing a porter bundle that defines this, that env would just become a an input into that, and I wouldn't necessarily have separate WorkingDirs for all of that. So, but I can definitely see, you know, there could be an instance where we would need to support this. Come on, so slow. Okay, so I've got a hate these docs. Okay, I've got a draft PR up. I should have this done by this weekend, and then I'll have, you know, like some example use cases for this as well. And then we can just
Okay, cool.
see kind of what happens and how this gets used.
Nice.
Did you have anything else that you
Well, I
wanted to
have
talk
a
about?
question,
Sure.
I mean, I could ask it on Slack or something, but in case you know, I'll just ask it. Uh, is there a timeout for the CLI? Because we were just doing a test of like a long running ARM deployment that's taking
Mm-hmm.
more than 15 minutes, and it seems like it's always timing out at 15 minutes. Is that the default timer?
Ooh, that's a good question. I will look into that. That's not something I know off the top of my head, but
I was surprised. I
I
thought it Porter would just take, I mean, because
yeah, I don't I would not expect there to be a timeout on the command. How would you know how long the
yeah,
um
I mean that I'm still if yeah, I'm actually somebody else was doing it, and but they said they just ran Porter install twice, and it timed out after 15 minutes. But yeah, again, I was a bit surprised that Porter would have that timeout because you can't make an assumption about how long this
right.
command is going to take.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm trying to think. I mean, I've ran significantly longer than 15-minute bundles, I know. Um, that
Yeah,
was, I mean, that's in the context of the operator, but it's still
if
just
I'm going
Porter
to do
under the
my own
hood.
test to validate this, if I get a different result, I guess I'll ping you on Slack.
Sure.
Yeah, but I just didn't know if you knew of anything off the top of your head.
No, I don't believe so. That would surprise me, and if so, we need to either remove that or significantly up it from 15 minutes. 15 minutes is not long enough for sure.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so
Uh,
is the timeout coming from Porter or is it coming from
well,
the execution?
I asked my colleague twice. He said he's sure it's Porter because the ARM deployment ends up succeeding. I guess Porter CLI, but yeah, I'll run it myself, my own test.
Okay.
If you want to
And
wait, if you want to wait for me to confirm this before you look at it, that may make
sure.
more sense. Yeah.
Is this, and also is this something in the, you're using the ARM mixin or the exec
I think
mixin
he
to
is
run
using the
those?
ARM mixin,
Okay.
but he doesn't think it's the timeouts from the ARM mixin. But yeah, I'll double check that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We'll definitely figure that out. But I would not expect
Because
that
that
to
would
be an
make more
issue.
sense to me that the ARM mixin maybe has a timeout in it.
If there's a timeout, I would expect it at the mixin level because that's going to be, much more mixin dependent.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
even then, I wouldn't really, especially 15 minutes does not seem. I mean, if you've done stuff in Azure, some of that stuff can take a while to provision. So,
right. Yeah. Okay. Well, again, yeah, maybe I'll confirm it and ping you on Slack about it.
okay, sure. Um, what was your last name again?
Schenk, SCHENK. SCHENK. ENK.
That's ENK.
Yeah.
EHENK. Okay. So what are you guys using Porter for? What's your use case right now?
Uh, we are using it for some ideas we have about doing deployments at Microsoft, actually. So I work at Microsoft,
Uh-huh.
and we are looking at some use cases of having it, be used for what it is designed for, to have a way to define the package and put it into a bundle and make the installation of more complex deployments easier.
Sure.
So we might be mixing like ARM and other. So the thing is, it could be ARM and then other components from Microsoft to help with these more complex deployments.
Hmm. Are you guys using the operator or are you using just the CLI for
Uh,
now?
we're using the CLI. We did look at the operator, but the way we're using it now, we're not. Although we might come back to that.
Okay.
We're running it, and actually we switched to running it in ACI. And actually, we came up with a way of doing it in ACI that
Interesting.
one thing that we ran into was that the CNAB ACI driver hasn't been updated. There is one that was written a while ago.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that
It
definitely has not been touched in a long
Yeah,
time.
we came up with another way of doing it that didn't require us to update driver because we didn't know if we wanted to update that one.
Uh-huh.
But just another way to basically be able to run it in ACI. So that might be something I could come around at some point and just explain what we did there. But
Yeah, yeah, that'd be really interesting. Either ACI or container app environment jobs as well would be an
yeah,
interesting use
yeah,
case.
yeah. So
Um,
that's what we're doing now uh, is ACI. But we did actually try out the operator, um, and it does work well. Although I think it wasn't, as I understood from Sarah, I know it's been released, but I think that there were maybe some still open items on it. So I
yeah,
don't.
yeah, there's a couple little things that I really want to in the next couple months focus on. That's where I've done most of my work in Porter has been more geared towards the operator. And I want to, the big thing right now is we have the first pass implementation of outputs. So when you install a bundle, you'll get the Terraform outputs, or sorry, the Porter outputs CRD has been added to the operator, and you'll get that automatically created. But updates to or when you upgrade an existing installation, we're not propagating those new outputs if those outputs change into the existing Porter
Okay,
outputs
okay,
resource. So that shouldn't be too difficult to do. It's just I haven't had a chance to get back to it, but that's the big thing that I want to solve to make it fully usable. And then there's a couple little bugs to iron out as well, but the
yeah,
overall functionality is definitely there.
yeah. That's awesome.
All right. Anything else that you wanted to talk about?
Well, actually, I have a question on the operator.
Okay.
I was trying to understand because actually, when you run the operator, I was looking at the agents and I saw that there was this agent code that was written, and I assume there's an agent container. Um, does it run privileged in Kubernetes, or like you're not running Docker dint or something, right? I mean, how is it run? I guess
So
that's
so when you kick off, say, like an installation, it creates a Kubernetes job that is so there's actually two different, let's see if I can get to the code here. There's two different containers that run. So there's the agent action image, which is essentially the execution of the operator's requested porter command. So it spins up a container inside of Kubernetes as a job that is from that image that has porter installed in it, and it's set up to run in the Kubernetes cluster. And it inside that agent action image or agent image runs the actual porter command. So porter blah blah blah. But what it does is it sets I think it's the flag is in Kubernetes driver. And so it uses the Kubernetes CNAB driver to kick off the execution bundle. So then it runs the bundle itself also as a Kubernetes job and kicks it out as a separate job. And then the agent job just is waiting for the bundle execution job, which is just that CNAB bundle, but running inside of Kubernetes as its
so
own.
you don't need to run. It's orchestrating that in a way so that it doesn't have to run it as privileged. Because actually,
Yes.
you don't need like Docker and Docker or something like that.
No. So it's the flow is the operator kicks off when you create, say, an installation resource. It kicks off the agent action of porter install foo, but it sets when it runs that porter install, it has an environment variable that says, I don't want to run this in Docker. I want to run this in Kubernetes. And it runs in Kubernetes as a Kubernetes job, and it orchestrates that actual execution of the bundle as its own Kubernetes job. And if you look in, let's see if I can spin this up real quick. If you look in the like K9S or something while you're kicking off an installation, you'll see the two jobs be created, and the agent action job or the agent job just waits for the actual execution of the bundle to finish in a separate job, and then it is, that's what
So then
drives the
once it's done, it
resource.
maybe collects some information and then stops, or it probably does a little. I don't know what it does once it's waiting for completion, and then it does something after it completes. I guess like gather outputs.
Yeah. So when it waits for the completion of the CNAB bundle to finish executing, and then when it's done, it basically finishes its operation and updates the resource with completed, right? So like the job is now completed. Okay. And then the reconciler just will say, hey, like I have a completed job. Are there outputs associated with it? Let me go grab those outputs. And then it'll actually go grab those outputs and put them. We've got two different ways to do this. So we're doing this we're trying to figure out what the long-term way for this is. So part of the operator installation, right now we have a separate gRPC server that spins up as a long-lived service that runs alongside the operator. And the purpose of that is right now, the only thing that it does is fields requests for outputs from particular installations. But that's a way for us to actually get into the porter because we don't really have a SDK for this. That we talked about putting this directly into the operator as an SDK, but it's a lot easier to run a small sidecar. And so that gRPC server is just waiting for requests for data. It's a data fetcher essentially. And when the operator sees that a installation has completed, it will go grab any associated outputs with that installation from that gRPC server that's running as a sidecar, and then it will populate the outputs resource.
Oh, okay. Actually, I saw that and I wasn't sure what it was used for. Okay. So you have the operator that's waiting for updates on like you said, for the installation resource will then query that server to get the actual outputs afterwards. Which I guess inside of it, it's just running. Well, actually, I was going to say it runs the port commands. I guess it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. Exactly. So that was kind of the thing is the first time that I proved this out, because my first issue with the operator was like, okay, great, I can install everything, but now I want to actually use what was installed, and there's no way to actually get in there and see what's what was outputted from that. And so that was the whole point, was is initially I was just running an agent action, because you can run an arbitrary agent action, but I was running an agent action that ran Porter installation show dash I installation instance, and in the job logs it would spit out the outputs, right? And then I was just grabbing those outputs, but that's not great. So the grpc server is just a way to directly hit
Okay.
Porter
You didn't
without
actually,
having.
that was what I was thinking when you just mentioned that you could just run the porter command like you just said.
Yeah.
You didn't like that. You didn't like that, I guess,
Well, I
versus
mean, you're just parsing job logs. It's just not. It felt really clunky, right?
I
So
see.
you can run. So the way when I was developing this out was, I've got an API and I want to expose Porter bundles in a self-service manner, so that any developer can go to my API and say, oh, here's Porter bundle that does cool thing XYZ. Let me deploy that. And the operator was handling the actual deployment of that bundle, and going out to making sure that it runs inside of a managed cloud, so the developers don't have to deal with um, cloud access or credential management. And then so it would run that bundle, and then it would report back those outputs to the developer so that they could then use whatever we just created, right? And the first pass is run the bundle, make sure it installs, run another agent action with Porter installation outputs list. I can't remember the command off the top of my head, but whatever. I just want to grab the outputs for the installation I just created. That just dumps out inside the container job logs in Kubernetes, and then I would go parse all those logs and say, okay, here's the outputs. And so the gRPC server is just a way to get that natively into the operator as well, so that the operator can grab those outputs without having to kick off a separate agent action to run a job and then parse the logs out of there.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And yeah, and we had a request a while back for just the gRPC server as well that exposes various data. And I think it's going to be something that we'll just continually add on to, because I definitely can see some value for being able to get information about your Porter ecosystem from a gRPC server or some kind of
Well,
API
actually, yeah,
in
that's
the
what
operator.
when I saw that it was there, I thought that maybe that's what it was, like a general purpose GRP API that you would essentially, make queries of to get information from.
Yes, so that's ultimately what I'd like to see it get to. It's not there yet, but we're at the beginning stages of that, essentially. So the only thing it exposes right now is fetching the latest outputs for a particular installation.
Yeah.
And the next thing that I want to do is get it to where we just are adding more and more endpoints to it, and like, well, what else do you want to get? Do you want to get information about like all the installations that are currently installed and metadata around them? And do you have what not the data, but what credential sets do you have? So it's more from an introspective into the Porter ecosystem.
Cool.
Okay, let me see if I can run this here. I want to share. So this is the actual operator running inside of a inside of a cluster, just a kind cluster. And so when let's see, it's been a while since I've used K9S actually. Control A, right?
Oh, to what?
To go back and search the whole entire um
I don't remember. I just typed slash. So.
yeah, slash. And so if I want to go out of the pods and go up a level and search for installation type or resource types. I got to remember the way to do that. Control. Boy, it has been a long time since I've been in K9S. I need to get back to this because this is unacceptable. What are we doing here?
Is it not just, I mean, if you know what you're looking for, can you just type slash and the name of it, like slash nodes or something like that? Like // nodes.
Yeah. I want to see the overview. Right now, I'm just in the pods. I can only see what pods are running. And I want to go up a level so that I can look for resource types. And I can't remember what the command to go up is. I'm having just an absolute brain fart here.
Yeah, I don't know what the command to go up, but I was just wondering if you type / like nodes or so / CRD.
Yeah, that's if you're at the top level, but I'm inside the pods. Like
Okay,
I'm only
that's
looking
sorry.
at pods right now, and I need to go up a level. And I thought it was Control A. Like if I want to look at all my
It
namespaces.
says, oh, I see. The all above is just the pods. Yeah, I don't know.
And that's for
I don't have it handy
um
myself to try it out, so I don't remember.
let's
Either.
see. So node, command clear, reload, save. Okay. Let me at least kick off the installation of the demo here so we can see. So like we're kicking up this. I'm doing a demo install here, and let me grab this real quick. This is nine. Yes. Show all available. Oh yeah. It was Control A. I was just my key binding is just messed up on here. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so here's the jobs that were just kicked off for this installation. So when I do, so I've got this installations CRD, right? That's what I'm actually laying down here, and this defines this little demo installation that I just kicked off. And when this kicks off, it spawns two jobs. So the first job it spawns is the agent action, or the agent job associated to this installation, which this is, so the kind is agent action, and this is the one that actually runs the porter install, says installation apply installation.yaml. So we're actually applying the installation that we just defined in the CRD. And then the porter runtime driver is Kubernetes. And for that, it knows, hey,
Right.
I'm going to kick off a sub job in here. And this is the actual job, the install job that was created for that installation. And this is the thing that actually runs and does the bundle. This is the execution of the bundle inside. And you'll see this is the actual bundle itself that's being installed. And then the installation agent action is just a wrapper for it. So the whole purpose of the agent action is to just kick off the execution of the bundle inside of Kubernetes and run it as its own job using that driver. And then the installation outputs is after that has ran, the reconciler says, hey, I've got a completed job. I need to go fetch the outputs for it. And that's where we have this CRD, which dynamically sets outputs for that particular execution of that job or that
When you run
installation.
when you run it with the driver inside the agent, do you still do you have to give it like a connection string, or it just knows because it's running in Kubernetes?
It knows, yeah, it knows because it's running in Kubernetes. So
Okay. But like if I could run the Porter install with the Kubernetes driver on my command line outside of Kubernetes, and if I had a cluster and in the configuration, it would also just work. Or it would, right?
there's the in cluster, and I haven't tried running it outside,
Oh, I
like
see.
running
There's
Porter
in
outside
cluster.
against something inside.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I mean, there's nothing stopping you from configuring these things directly, and just it's really it's the Porter runtime driver. This is what tells Porter where do I actually kick off the execution of this bundle, and then we're running in cluster. I'll have to double check what the driver for the Kubernetes driver is on where it gets its kube config. But if you would have to pass in a kube config if you're running outside the cluster with Porter to execute it against, inside the cluster.
Okay. So it seems like the driver was designed to support that scenario, but mostly it's been used to support the operator scenario, it sounds like.
Yes, for sure, for sure. I'll double check on if the current driver, the CNAB driver for Kubernetes or the Porter runtime driver supports specifying the kube config, so that you can run Porter outside of the cluster and have it kick off inside the cluster. That's a good use case.
It could, yeah, I mean, it could be. I just thought maybe that's just the way it worked, especially because you had that in cluster environment variable.
Yeah.
So yep. I guess you set it to false, but then yeah, like you said, if it's false, where does it get the kube config?
Yeah, we need to specify the kube config then in that case.
So maybe there's another environment variable for that.
Let's see.
But that's not, so I guess you didn't, you said you were working on the operator, so you didn't write the Kubernetes driver, I guess that was.
No, that was already existing.
Already existing, yeah.
I'm gonna say it probably does, but I'll double check on that.
I don't have it like, it's just curiosity. I didn't have a
reply. Yeah. I mean, it's a good question to have the answer to. But yeah, I mean, if in the Kubernetes driver, like there's just a list of in the Porter runtime driver, there's a list of options that configuration options that you can pass to it, and I'm sure config is one of them, especially if there's an in cluster name or in cluster config value you can specify.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. If you're interested at all in running things inside of the cluster, just from a getting started quick start perspective, there's the operator quick start, but there is also a separate repo that's was written by me and another one of the maintainers, Brian DeGeeter, that
for the operator,
for just a quick demo, and that's what I just spun up here, of the operator, but inside of a larger ecosystem. So this is taking the operator, but also putting it inside of Argo's workflows, so that you can essentially add more complexity to the operator itself and put workflows around creating a new installation. So now you use Argo workflows and have a workflow template specified that has, like, this is what you do before you kick off the Porter installation, and this is what you do afterwards. And you could chain things together. You could put approval processes in place. You could do notifications and all those. This is a richer ecosystem for managing Porter installations inside of Kubernetes. Right. And yeah, it's just basically bookends around that. It gives you an
see.
API that you can hit if you go straight through the Argo API instead
Yeah,
of.
that would be cool to see. The demo.
Yeah, so I mean, this is what I did here. Like this is literally what I just kicked off. If we go, um, let me go to. Um, so I just ran this specific repo. Um, what is the port that we're listening on here? I don't remember. It's in the docs. We'll look at the make file. Oh, that's the wrong make file. Top level make file. Oh, oh yeah, it's just here. Do I not have this running?
Okay. Oh no, I was trying to find it. I didn't find it yet. Is it in your GitHub?
Oh, so it is a it's in Brian DeGeeter's GitHub. Oh, I think it's because I've been messing around with my search stuff and I got to fix the keychain. So I'll drop this into the chat. This should be throughout our docs as well, because this is kind of our.
Maybe it's there. Yeah.
Let's see. I'll just put this in
Like
here.
I think maybe I did see it, but I didn't explore it deeply. But I don't know if it was in the docs.
Yeah, and it just like I said, this is kind of a building block of a platform that we developed that just gives you that extra little
Yeah.
platform feel, right?
Yeah, it makes sense because and then that's like a full GitOps platform,
Exactly.
like a
Yep.
full GitOps platform, I guess. Yeah. Makes
So let
like
me just share this here. Okay, so this is the Argo workflows UI that I'm running inside my cluster. And so when I just this demo I just kicked off, it just kicked off a workflow template that we have defined. So this workflow template is it just kind of again applies a workflow to the creation of Porter installations inside a cluster. And you can do anything you want beforehand and afterhand. And the only thing we're doing specifically is we're using Argo workflows to create a new installation resource based on what you provided. And you even have
I see. So
the
you're basically creating the YAML there, right? That you
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And this gives you kind of a built-in uh, configuration that you can collect information from the user. So like we're even saying, well, like, oh, I want my Porter parameters. I don't want a delay of 3 seconds. I want a delay of 10 seconds. And I want, if there's other, I don't want to exit status 0 because that would cause this to fail, but you could, let's see, oh, I need a deploy name. So I'm submitting this from the UI, but you can also submit this from either the Argo API, or you could put your own API in front of this as well that's more declarative if you want. And so under the hood, this is just kicking off that Argo workflow, which wraps the Porter installation. And so that like this right here is actually creating, if we go back to the cluster here, I'm just going to share my whole screen. I don't know why I was sharing only part of it because it's so wide. But so now we're creating off a new installation that has the new variable set on it. So this is that install demo, and now the delay was set to 10 instead of set to 3.
Mhm.
And then if you go back to here, right now it's the thing we were doing before we actually had the outputs added to the operator as its own CRD is we were actually running inside of Argo workflows, and we were just
Oh,
hitting
okay.
the gRPC server directly, right? So that we would have this is
Okay.
just those outputs just base 64 encoded right here. But now you have the actual Porter outputs CRD as well that you can use. So there's a lot. This gets you up and running with a full-fledged API fronting Porter installations with a built-in like catalog system where you can specify bundles that you want to expose as well as the inputs to those, and then you can just start, building out from here. It's just kind of like an 80% use case scenario for what a bigger platform might look like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really nice.
So yeah, go ahead and just take a look at that. That should be pretty simple to at least start poking around with. And if there's any feedback on those docs, we'd love to have that too. We need to get this merged into the main operator repo as well, so that we have this kind of example as part of that.
Yeah. Well, it's great meeting you.
Yes, yeah, you too. Yeah, I'm sure we'll run into each other again,
Yeah, we'll
especially
definitely-
as you guys build out Porter more.
Yep, definitely. Have a great day.
All right, sounds
Bye.
good. Talk to you
Bye.
later.